Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Arcane Assist. I'm Tim, joined this week by Evan, and I'm playing some Retribution into Evan's GRYMKIN. Showing off a couple of lists I've been working on for a while. This is a Retribution post-CID Legions of Dawn list. So it focuses on a lot of the synergies that are present in the new sort of post-CID Retribution world. A lot of things that maybe were unavailable to them before that allowed the theme to shine in a way that it didn't before. I am playing Goreshade4, or Ghyrrshyld the Forgiven. He's a really neat caster. I've liked him a ton. I'm really, really enjoying putting him on the table. Took him to War Machine Weekend this year. Played in a little 8-person scrambler with a one list. Played just this list. Won every game. Felt really comfortable doing it. Really awesome caster with a deep toolbox. I also believe he has some of the tools to play well into GRYMKIN. Kind of a bit of a brick breaker. There's elements of this matchup that are good for him and elements of the matchup that are kind of rough for him. So I think this will make for a really good match. Evan, do you want to talk about the list that you brought?
Yeah, so I got a very Battlegroup heavy child list in Dark Menagerie. So we've got the child with a Cage Rager, 3 Skin and Moans, 2 Rattlers, 3 Gorehounds, and 3 free Crabbits, as well as a Glimmer Imp, Karianna Rose, and 4 Gremlin Swarms. Notably, no Death Knell.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat list, actually. When I saw Evan's models in the tray, I was like, oh, you forgot the Death Knell. And he was like, deliberately. So it's kind of cool. You get extra free cards, I think, if you don't take the Death Knell. Is that?
Yeah, so I have 6 free things as opposed to the typical 4 or 5?
5.
Yeah, so I've got 3 free Crabbits and 3 free Gremlin Swarms. But I also just get a lot more work into the list. I've got an extra Rattler, an extra Gorehound. So there's a lot there.
Yeah, it's a neat approach. I think the child can really play like a distance kind of keep away game and then sort of slingshot pieces up, so she's not quite as reliant as building the impenetrable fortress as say somebody like the Dreamer might be. I'm keen to see it play out. Folks have asked a couple of times for a little bit more insight into list building choices, and given that I'm showing off a list that I feel like I've kind of built myself or have put some effort into tweaking and tuning, I'll talk a little bit about what I decided here. To my way of thinking, the core of Legions of Dawn is the Sentinels. Sentinels are very, very self-sufficient troops, really, really powerful. They deliver in multiple ways. They've got Relentless Charge. They've got access to Pathfinder, and they hit incredibly hard and incredibly accurately. So without support of really any necessary type, they're a powerful melee presence. So to that way of thinking, I've got 2 units of Sentinels, both with UAs, and I've got 2 Soulless Escorts on them. Those are not absolutely necessary to get the free points in this theme, but they do serve as a sort of resiliency buffer for those units, give them just a couple more tools. In terms of other pieces in the list, if those are the sort of hammer of the list, the Anvil is a max unit of Desters. Now, I've played Desters in min units and been really happy with those units so far, but the max unit of Desters is about having more powerful revive options. Not super relevant in this matchup, but very, very powerful in other matches, and also skewing Dauntless Resolve. So they're defense 13, armor 17, Dauntless Resolve, that goes up to 13-20. And then I've got an Artificer in the list to give them access to Force Barrier, which can help them on the approach. And then I've also got a Dester Thane in the list, who I'm still not 100% sold on. There's a couple of different things he could be or places that model could shift out, determining if I want a Tactician bubble with a Sire or if I want to grant the Unyielding to that unit. But just the fact that they're already armor 20, taking them to 22, means they sometimes stick around just a little harder or just a little bit more resiliently than they have any business to do. And the Dester Thane ends up sort of reaching out really deep and being a fairly accurate piece at Mat 8 and Rat 7. So he's pretty great. I've been impressed with his use so far. And he's a super durable solo you can put on a flag too. So I like him in this scenario. I also have access to Eiryss 1 in the list. She's the free Merc choice because she's partisan. She can be free in the theme. And I've paired her up with a couple of Ghost Snipers. So this list is arguably a piece that can play into Primal Terrors. It's got good, resilient armor cracking pieces. It doesn't desperately rely on anything. It's got a little bit of recursion, so it punishes that list for not having access to a ton of RFP if they're playing variants that don't have Golab. It's got the ability to kill Hellmouths, and it's got some sort of deep digging elements, and it's not reliant on tools like stealth or incorporeal or any other things that Primal Terrors can prey on really well. I'm not expecting armor to be the only thing that keeps me alive. I'm not expecting defense to be the only thing that keeps me alive, but I can pressure those vectors, certainly in late game situations against that list. So I feel like it's good for those reasons. Tight generalist list. It's got some potential weaknesses, but Goreshade's Feet really makes it, a bit of a time walk. Gremlin Swarms are going to be a bit of an issue, but that means that I just have to get better work out of my battle group, which includes, of course, Goreshade himself, a single Chimera, and Imperatus, bringing us to these perfect battle group points and a perfectly full list. A little more detail than I've given in the past, but a couple of people have asked about my thoughts on Retribution generally, and certainly it's been a faction I've been spending some time testing out, so I figured I'd give some perspective. What goes into me building a list?
Well, there you go. Cool. In terms of my list, the philosophy was mostly just I can get rid of a lot of support that would typically be in a lot of other GRYMKIN lists, such as the Death Knell, for just more get work done pieces. I can already turn the Gorehounds and the Rattlers up to 11 with the combination of Abuse and Enrage, so they're just going to go in and do work when they need to. Really, the only support pieces in this list are the ones that are basically free anyways, which are the Gremlin Swarms and the Crabbits. Karianna Rose brings some extra work with ancillary attack, and Enrage is just too good not to have. And a Glimmer Imp just fills up free points as well as gives me another solo to score. And Paralyzing Gaze occasionally comes in very handy. However, having 4 heavies and 5 lights that can all do work and be turned up to 11 with Abuse means that the child is going to do a lot.
Yeah, so you've got just like a bunch of flexible pieces that are all good in different matchups that you can sort of slingshot one at a time out into relevant places.
Mm-hmm.
I dig it. I think it's really cool. So without further ado, we'll get into the match and talk about our scenario. So I won the die roll, largely because of the +1 to go first from the theme, and I opted to go second. I decided that I felt like it was important that obstruction that you can see on the top half that kind of restricts access to the bottom rectangle there. I felt like that would be an important piece. Just not being able to walk through it with a lot of pieces. I mean, Evan's got Gorehounds who can go through it, and I've got Ghost Walk, so I can send troops through it. But it definitely restricts charges, and it gives Goreshade kind of a bit of hard cover to hide behind. Like a place where line of sight to him is a bit more restricted if he wants to play up the board a little bit more. And I felt like it would make scoring my zone easier. With that in mind, I felt like I wanted to put the Dester Thane and then ultimately the Desters on the bottom side of the board so that Dester Thane could be a really hardy solo on my own flag. And then the Desters would sort of just play clear and punish on the bottom side, which leaves me deploying both Sentinels kind of awkwardly in the middle, trying to get through this forest. But I've got Ghost Walk to help me with that on the first turn, so that was my rationale in picking this side, kind of thinking about the first couple of turns of unpacking. And I think it made it worth giving Evan the first turn so I could play just a cautious game of clear and score with the first scoring opportunity.
So my deployment here, I have to deal with the 3 forests on my side of the table. So I'm going to funnel through a couple of the holes and use the Ghostly and Prowl on the Gorehounds to give them stealth on the first turn, get them super far up. The 2 Gorehounds near the top side of the table are intended to harass and, contest that top zone as long as possible. They can do it for a couple of turns, and they're pretty high defense, so they can be sticky if Tim doesn't commit the right tools to them. I also have a Glimmer Imp and a Gremlin Swarm up there so that they can score that flag when the time comes, and Gremlin Swarm are also very good at contesting zones. Either. Take your pick. They're annoying, sticky little pieces. The Skin and Moans can also go on the top side of the table if there happens to be any harder targets there, though I'm intending on funneling a lot of my army through this gap between the 2 bottommost trees, because that gives me access to most of the center zone, and I feel like with all of the infantry Tim's bringing to bear on me, I'm going to have to do some clearing work sooner or later. Typically against Goreshade, it's going to have to be later, thanks to his feat and the threat he puts out. Thankfully, Sentinels are not that fast. I've taken for my Arcana Wrath, which is the child's signature one that you have to take. So whenever any of my battle group is damaged, I can give everyone +1 Fury for the turn. I took Ruin because I feel like Light of Wrath is going to be a tool that Tim has to use in order to effectively kill some Gremlin Swarms, and I might be able to save 1 or 2 through that and also clear off Dauntless Resolve while I'm at it. And I've also brought Labyrinth, because Sentinels aren't very fast, so making them slower really restricts their threat range, as well as causes them more issues with trying to get all of the models into melee on heavy bases. So that's the Arcana. Now we're just moving into the first turn. First Gorehound's just going to run right up into the forest, have a Gremlin Swarm there for some Serenity help. These Gremlin Swarms are just really useful on the first turn. The amount of Fury I'm putting out with how big my battle group is means that if I want everything to run on the first turn, I have to place Gremlin Swarms in spots where they tag multiple beasts in order to control that Fury for me. Thankfully, on a medium base, you got a lot of room to place some more beasts around them. Not to mention being incorporeal means I can run through them if need be, so there's a lot of room to work with here. I end up activating the child, putting up Tantrum because it's really good, and I throw Discord on a Gorehound because I feel like it's fast enough that I can get it into Tim's lines really early, cause a lot of disruption with forcing the Sentinels to kill it instead of run forward. The child charges up, goes as far forward as she possibly can. Cage Raider is just going to be sitting behind this forest. I think a good way of controlling the Desters early on, because they out-threat me so much, is just popping a Force Hammer or 2 in them in the early game. Just make sure they're knocked down and not able to do the charge work they want to. Other Gorehound's just going to hop into the forest, get that prowl off as well. I want to be really conservative with my Rattlers early on in this game, because while they won't be very good on Tim's feet turn, the turn after that, where there's hopefully a lot of bunched up Sentinels, I can pump them up real hard and then just annihilate infantry lines with them. So they're kind of one of the more important pieces in my list that I want to be very careful with at this point in the game.
I think one of the things that's really neat about the style of list building approach you've taken is you've got kind of the sampler. You've got a bit of everything. And you've got redundant modules of nearly everything. And in doing so, you know, the piece that's the absolute best in a given matchup changes. Like right here, you should protect your Rattlers. They're absolutely essential. They're hugely important pieces. And the main job of your list is to screen for them and to buy them time. You know, against another Beast Brick, you feel exactly the opposite way. Your Rattlers can be put up early to trade. You can put up the countercharge Animus with them. You can use them to buy you space and time for your Skin and Moans to deliver effectively. So I don't know. I think it's a really neat approach to GRYMKIN list building right now.
Yeah, I feel like the Death Knell brings a lot, but being such a huge target, it's particularly susceptible to guns, as much as Crabbits help with that. Something like Sloan is certainly going to cause a lot of issues for a Death Knell, just going to tear it off the table. Obviously, this list has a little bit more trouble into something like Makeda, where the Entropic Aura would be invaluable, and
a game we featured not that long ago.
Exactly, yes.
And you saw how effective Entropic Field was in that list.
Mm-hmm. But I can take things like Accursed in order to mitigate that.
Sure. That makes sense. So I'm just unpacking here a little bit. Imperatus moves up as aggressively as he can, staying outside of the threat range of the Skin and Moans. Ghost Snipers move up behind the wall, making it hard for pieces to access them, leveraging their threat and Pathfinder ranges. Big block of Sentinels move right up the middle of the board and stuff themselves between that forest and the house. Goreshade completes the loop by throwing a couple of clouds down there. He casts Dauntless Resolve through the Arc Node onto the Desters, and he walks up, camping 1, happy as a clam. And then the unit of sentinels over here, I considered ghost walking them on the first turn, but decided I wanted to really project that threat range by putting up all my defensive tech, which is Dauntless Resolve and the 2 clouds to kind of create that gap. So this unit of sentinels is going to sort of second wave really hard. They're going to stay mostly behind the forest, sort of flanking it on either side. Unit of Desters is just activating, and they're running, keeping everybody in formation, holding one member of them really, really far back. So if Evan kills them with a Force Hammer or something like that, he's not going to wipe the whole unit. I can revive a couple of pieces. Put Force Barrier up on them, which makes them immune to blast against plus 2 defense against ranged attacks. Not actually super relevant in this matchup. For a moment, I thought it also gave them plus 2 defense against spells, which it does not. But thinking that, I was like, I can protect myself from a random Force Hammer, and not especially.
So here I have a momentary lapse in memory and forget that pull does not drag larger bases. So I immediately am like, oh, I can pull Imperatus forward and then get a Skin of Moans on him, which is just not how it works. So I immediately pull that plan from my ideas.
I'm like, what are you doing? How about a threat of the Skin of Moans? You're like, I'll pull him in. I'm like, you can't do that. And you're like, really? Isn't that just drag? And not at all.
That's not how the game works, so don't do this.
Yeah. So, judge on sight. That's the goal.
So let's look at the next Gorehound then. The Gorehound in the bottom forest is going to basically run to where you can kind of see that proxy base behind the tree. With Discord up, he has Ghostly, so ignores all the free strikes and everything that would normally be taken there.
And the terrain. And the
terrain. And he's just going to stand in both units of Sentinels, preventing them from getting orders. And I'm not planning on triggering Vengeance this turn, so they're going to have to just suffer their activation clearing him out.
Yeah, that sucks. And you're also engaging Eiryss in doing so. So like that's a good line of play. I think that's cute. I think having a disposable beast to put Discord on and just be really obnoxious can really stall out an army. And especially if you put it in a position where like, you know, I allocate the right number of attacks, but maybe not a lot of redundant attacks. And then I get a little unlucky and all of a sudden this Gorehound is still alive. Well, then what do you do? Like that becomes a whole complicated puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, in that position, he's just shy of also getting Goreshade within 5, which would prevent him from casting spells. But that's fine. We're causing enough disruption with this little Gorehound this turn. So we'll take what we can get. I briefly debate trampling with an abused Skin and Moans into the unit of Sentinels, but doing the math on it, I lose all my initials. Yeah, I lose all my initials for trampling. I trample for free because of pain response.
Yeah.
Have 4 attacks. I'm at -2 mat for them because of the clouds. And I need 7s to hit.
They're icy.
So I probably only killed 2 of them, which is not worth a Skin and Moans, and also not worth granting them vengeance. So we're just going to stay out of threats this turn is the plan.
Yeah, I was really excited for you to do that, and then you didn't do it, and I was really disappointed. So you have my sadness on your shoulders.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you usually are.
So Gorehound finally moves in there after I've apparated a bunch of pieces up. This turn, I take a lot of time for a turn in which I do very little in terms of work. I very much have to pay attention to where I'm positioning because the next turn after this, I'm not going to get any work done.
Yeah, I think I kind of zone out for a minute. Like, no word of a lie, you spend so much time thinking about the positioning and kind of doing the like, okay, this happens, and then next turn this happens, and then this happens, so what does that leave me on? Like, you're doing the chess master thing where you're trying to think like 3 or 4 turns ahead and really kind of anticipate the play, and I tune out. Against
Goreshade, and it's very similar against Borkatu, you have to think that many turns ahead because there is a turn of the game where you can't attack your enemy's models or else you're just letting them kill your pieces for free. Like, on your feet turn, there's very little for me to attack with Skin and Moans, there's little incentive because as soon as I kill anything, they just become stationary. And a stationary Skin and Moans is a dead Skin and Moans because they rely far more on their defense than a lot of other beasts to not die, especially in this list where I don't have a death knell giving them armor, and if I can only collect one corpse from you, because as soon as I kill one model, I die, my armor is not going to be high enough to survive a bunch of POW 12 Weapon Masters. This Gorehound gets super aggressive and hides behind the tent. It's a great spot for him. He's contesting the zone. If Imperatus wants to come and kill this Gorehound, he doesn't kill the other Gorehound.
Should you describe your Gorehound placement as intense?
Don't you pun me too. Jason did this last week. I'm not about it.
Welcome to Arcane Assist, where Evan suffers, and the rest of us enjoy wordplay.
Uh-huh.
It's like horseplay, but better.
Uh-huh. No frightmares here.
No horseplay.
Anyways, Skin and Moans stays out of threat of Imperatus. Glimmer Imp sits on the flag. Gremlin Swarm hides behind a forest. Crabbit goes up B is a shield guard. And basically everything stays out of threat. I'm just staying on the edge as far up as I can possibly be in order to cause you problems, make sure you don't get damage in before your feet turn. And then hopefully I have room to do anything on your feet turn, whether it be back up more, take out some pieces that happen to not be in your feet, or just have a key model that's worth getting stationary for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've got some hard decisions to make here. After Evan does his whole kind of positioning turn, my line of play, which was, clear and score, is significantly impacted by the fact that he hasn't given me a lot of things to clear.
Yeah, I end up running a Cage Rager pretty far to the right here, just so I can disrupt some more Desters, kind of like how I've been keeping out of threat in the middle. I'm making sure the Desters can't do anywhere near as much damage by force hammering one of them into the other one.
Yeah, clever line of play here. That Cage Rager is far enough over that it's not giving the wall bonus to that Dester, which I was sort of relying on. And then you're going to force hammer it, and you need a 6, I think, to hit it?
Yes, so I need a 6 to hit. I probably should have boosted because the child's very safe where she is. She's also going to walk into this forest and be fine. But I figured if it's a 6, it's fairly likely. I just go for it. I get it. Knock the Desters into each other. Leave it on one box and don't do any damage to the other one. But they're knocked down, which significantly reduces their output.
Yeah, it's actually really clever. I like that because I was definitely planning to just, maybe light a Wrath, maybe force you to use the Arcane Vortex, maybe force you to Ruin if I cast it a couple of times, stick as many as 3 Hand of Ices into the Cage Rager to give it the armor debuff, and then charge it with 3 Desters, maybe 4, give them Ghost Walk if I need to, and just kill your Cage Rager right off the hop and start to pressure that flank really hard. Instead of you letting me do that, now I have 1, maybe 2 Dester charges. That doesn't kill a Cage Rager, so it stops being worth casting Hand of Ice on you 3 or 4 times. I glance over here to see if Goreshade can walk over and just stab the Gorehound, maybe boost to hit, make it stationary, kill it with a couple of attacks. He is not in a position where he can walk and still engage it in melee without the Sentinels activating first. So again, having Vengeance would have been great. Evan played that one correctly. But I'm gonna come up with a new plan.
A new plan, you say?
Yeah. I do upkeep Dauntless Resolve, and I look for outs here. I still think clear and score is the right line of play. I've got a little bit of a time advantage, so I'm going to take a moment to think.
Yeah, I arced. You asked me there what my control area was. I arced Force Hammer before I moved, but I still totally unintentionally managed to keep
in control. Yeah,
managed to keep him just in control.
So I look at the side of the board and I determine that I want Imperatus to kill the Gorehound. So I allocate him 2 focus. To make a spot for him, the Ghost Sniper activates first. I consider where the Ghost Sniper can move and what it can shoot, but the placement of that Crabbit keeps you pretty safe. So instead he runs to within contesting range of your flag because I'm not going to kill the solo who's on that flag. Imperatus makes a couple of attacks on the Gorehound. His first couple of attacks actually missed despite the resounding mat of 8, but in the bot attacks, because I did allocate him 3 focus, he manages to kill the Gorehound. We activate another Ghost Sniper who moves up, just takes a shot at the Gorehound behind the trees, puts 3 points into its 5. Just chip away at those spirit aspects, just kind of punish Evan. Putting incidental damage into beasts early is also really useful because it can suddenly make Abuse a more dangerous spell to cast. The Sentinels who are kind of playing the Plan B plan, who are sort of staggered back, expecting to kind of go in as the second wave, they're not going to get to make use of their Relentless Charge because they have to walk. Their officer is within 5 inches of the Discord bubble, and a bunch of them are as well. So they're just going to sort of scooch up. I get 3 in the back arc of the discarded Gorehound, and I get 1 officer model in its front arc. So I'm looking for 3 5s and 1 6. First one misses, second one hits. Dice -1, I think, here on the Gorehound.
Yep. You pretty readily take it out.
I underwhelm real hard on the dice. I roll really, really badly, and the officer hits, and he manages to kill it on the last attack. This should have been like a super dead, and instead was like that almost didn't happen. So the sort of circumstance I was talking about where like that guy who's annoying is kind of a throwaway piece, but also kind of more than a speed bump because it could present a real risk. Like that's very much the situation I just experienced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gorehounds they're def 14, which is really good, but they also only have 20 boxes, which is very squishy for a light.
Depends on what faction you're playing.
Well, 14, 13. 13 armor is also very low.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, they're also 6 points, right?
Also true.
So this unit of Sentinels is going to just run to fill the zone. They're mini-feeding for Iron Zeal. Just kind of flood that space. I've sort of pinned in the Gremlin Swarm a little bit that haven't moved up there, so it can't really apparate to a more convenient location. I should have probably flooded this even a little bit harder and engaged that Skin and Moans, but I did not. I'm planning to defeat this turn.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, this is top of 2, which is typically the Goreshade/Borka 2 turn. It's the one that's going to cause me a lot of issues because I basically can't attack your models, or else I'm giving you free murder targets.
So I move up the Chimera sufficient that I'm not giving cover to that Gremlin Swarm and that I'm within 5 inches of it. The plan is to have Goreshade come up a little bit more aggressively and cast Light of Wrath. Tag that Gremlin Swarm, kill it, maybe be able to Hand of Ice. I do the math a little bit badly here because I've upkept Dauntless Resolve and allocated 2. So I'm actually down to 4. So I didn't really need to be in that range of the Cage Rager, but I did need to be this far forward with the Chimera to avoid the cover. So I cast Light of Wrath. Not too far away, and I miss rolling a 4. Not great. Scatters 1 to the 1. There's nice little double ones there. And now we're dealing with POW 7 against armor. So I need a 10 to kill you. I roll an 8. So leave you on 3 boxes?
Yeah.
2 boxes.
Leave him on 2. Leave him on 2. But also, he loses stealth and has -2 defense, so your good friend Eiryss can come over here and help.
Yeah, so Eiryss takes a deadly shot. And she rolls a 3, which hits you because she got past the cover and you had -2 defense.
All relevant.
Yep, almost didn't kill you. But do get to remove that Gremlin Swarm, which puts me in a position to put some Dester charges in here. I think about, like, can I charge this Crabbit? Because if I can charge the Crabbit, then you can't shield guard any of the lance shots on the Cage Rager here, and maybe that gives me a couple more points of damage. Maybe it kills a piece that could matter for you later, and I check it a couple of different ways, and basically what it comes down to is on angle that I want to charge you, without going through any rough terrain, I can't get there.
Yep, so you're just going to take some gunshots by the looks of it.
Shots. So one of the decision points in the taking of gunshots here is that the two guys who were knocked down stood up and forfeited movement, so they could still take some shots. They're POW 14, so I just -5 against the Cage Rager, but I just want to put in some just chip damage against him. And I do. Like a bunch of chip damage.
Yeah, POW 14 is very good for guns. I mean, you're not auto-hitting and you don't get the charge, but
they're good guns.
Damage is damage. I opt not to shield guard any of them. I feel like just having the Crabbit around is a better threat than actually having it take the damage, just because it can still stay around in case you want to shoot at something more squishy, like the Skin and Moans.
Yeah. And I think at this point you do proc Wrath. Did we talk about what? Yeah, you did talk about what Arcana you picked.
So at this point, once you damage the Cage Rager, I did proc Wrath, because I think based on your positioning where you've moved your Sentinels, I could have procced it earlier in the round, but based on where your Sentinels are, as well as where the Gorehound is behind the tent, kind of threatening Goreshade, I think, all right, with Wrath, I can trample over a ton of Sentinels, get a lot of work done by boosting damages, maybe kill 4 or 5. Then, after that, I'll become stationary, but I'll kill half a unit of Sentinels, and that's really good work on your feet turn, even if I'm giving you a full Skin and Moans.
Right, because that full Skin and Moans will be on full corpses, too.
Mm-hmm. Which means armor is going to be pretty good, as opposed to the typical, I only get to kill 1 infantry model on Goreshade's feet turn. So I have that going for me. Making Crabbit's Fury 3 on this turn is going to be pretty good because I don't care all that much if they become stationary. What else? What else on this? Mostly the tramples, especially this Gorehound on the opposite side of the tent, because with Abuse, it can just walk and make attacks on Goreshade. And Goreshade's only camping 1, so regardless of whether or not I kill him, I can force him to play scared for the rest of the game.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Goreshade's on a 1 camp. Mm-hmm. That's it's not. I was like, I think if I'm on 1 camp, I'm totally fine here. And then I didn't really do the math on what happens if you have an extra Fury and you get abused.
Yeah, there's that. Also, I pull you 2 inches, which pulls a couple models out of your feet range.
Yeah, that's clever. Actually, I didn't even think about the pull.
Yeah, so there's some reasons for it. That's going to happen pretty early in the turn. And then otherwise, we're just going to do what we talked about earlier, stay out of threat ranges. Although at this point, it's very hard considering how far the signals are. So it's mostly insulating pieces and trying to protect them pretty well. So I measure out this trample maybe a dozen times. And the gist of this is Tim has positioned his Sentinels in such a way that I can only trample at 4 of them at my best angle. And on trampling those 4, I take 2 free strikes. And it's the same thing every angle I take with it. I can trample these 2 more, but then these 2 get free strikes. I can go a little bit the other way, but then the other 2 get free strikes. So I can't trample all of the models without taking at least 2 free strikes, which is bad for a Skin and Moans because they're squishy.
Yeah, especially before they've got corpses filled up, and especially from Weapon Masters. You know, the old Mat 9, POW 12 Weapon Master. Mm-hmm. Not great. Yeah. And I'm like, what? This looks totally fine. What if you just trampled to here? And the base that we've placed down there, I think, is further than 10 inches by a little bit. Yeah. And that's the key insight I didn't have when I was looking at this. I was like, I feel like you can get at least 5, but no, apparently you have to miss out on 2 models. Yeah. Which is too many for sure.
Which is too many. So that makes the Wrath plan a lot worse. It means that instead of getting to Wrath Tim's next turn and then having the get work done turn after Goreshade's feet where I can attack as many models as I like without anything bad happening to me necessarily, I've now used it on a turn where I can't really use that extra Fury all that well because I can't buy attacks, more or less. This Cage Rager's just going to go up, start beating on a Dester.
Fortunately, defense 13 means he missed several times.
Yes, he would typically he only has 7s to hit, and he misses most of them. And then the one time he does hit, he doesn't kill it. But after spending all 5 of its fury, manages to kill the singular Dauntless Resolved Dester.
Yeah, I think I forgot to make a tough check there.
Actually, did you drop Dauntless Resolve?
Nope.
Okay, well.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Let's assume he failed the tough check.
So then the Skin and Moans goes in. I want to, with the Skin and Moans, do as much damage as I can to the Chimera, hopefully cripple its Arc Node, maybe Cortex if I'm lucky, and then kill a Dester. I don't want to kill the Chimera because then I'll be stationary. This gets a Dester out of the way and makes sure that the Chimera is significantly less useful to him.
Critically, the Desters that you kill with the Skin and Moans and the Cage Rager are removed from play, which takes some of my revive game away.
Yeah. But that Skin and Moans is stationary now because of Goreshade's feat. But it's on 2 corpses.
The Chimera is missing an Arc Node. I have no repair on the list, no way to get that back up. Generator's out, so it can't apparate, which restricts its movement a little bit, but it still has movement, 1 arm, and Cortex.
Okay, so here's the important Gorehound move. The child went up, abused a Skin and Moans that was originally going to do the trample.
Abused the Gorehound.
Abused the Gorehound, more importantly, and is staying 3 inches back from the forest, making it so that the Sentinels can't charge him. I boost to hit the first attack with the Gorehound. It's dice off 2. I do 4 points of damage.
I choose not to reduce that with focus.
Now I'm choosing to just roll 7s for damage. You reduce the second attack, which would do 7 normally, so you reduce it to 2. I roll boxcars for my last attack, which leaves Goreshade on 1 box.
Jeez.
Yeah, so we leave Goreshade on 1 box. And, I actually boosted the first to hit roll, and I only needed 7s because I was in the back, and I wanted to kind of I didn't think I was going to come this close to killing him, so I figured I'll boost it just to guarantee it the pull, get some models out of your feet range, and get some damage in for sure. And then after that pull happened, I was like, you know what? It's 7s. Let's just roll them and do a bunch of damage and see how it goes, because you didn't reduce the first damage roll because I just got 4 damage in, and that's not quite enough to be worth reducing. And, I mean, apparently if you had reduced it, you would have died. So, good job, Tim.
Yay.
So maybe I shouldn't have boosted that to hit roll, but you know what? I'm happy with
so you did,
getting
of course, roll 3 consecutive 7s, right?
Yeah,
unboosted
no,
7s.
I get it.
Like,
I understand.
theoretically, you miss half of those.
Look, man.
I should have just not boosted because 50/50s always come up my way.
Exactly.
Yeah. And if they'd all come my way, well, then I would have done a bunch more damage.
I should have just boosted damage.
So, like, ballpark damage expectation here, you hit half the time. You have 5 attacks. So you get 7... pardon me. Your dice minus...
-2.
2, because you go up to power 14.
Uh-huh.
So minus 2. So you do 5 damage times 5 is 25.
But I only hit half, so
But
12
you only
and
hit
a half.
half. So 12 and a half, and I reduced that by 5 is 7.5 damage.
Yeah.
And instead, you did 21.
I mean, -5.
No, like that includes the minus 5.
No, if I did 21 damage, you'd be dead.
Oh, sure. So what I'm saying is, like, you got 16 damage through.
Okay,
yeah.
I understand now. Yes.
Yeah.
-5 would be 16. Yeah, there we go.
You should do about 12 and a half. You did 21. Yeah. I'm not salty, but it would have been if you killed me.
So here, the Skin and Moans trample, as we already talked about, does not happen because there's no possible way for him to land in such a way that gets 5 models. So I decide not worth. I move him over, insulate with some Gremlin Swarms. I take the time to measure so that they don't get hit by a Light of Wrath. Probably not a concern I should actually have because of how Goreshade is feeling and how he doesn't have an Arc Node. But we do it anyway, and we throw the Crabbit on the other side to make it even harder.
Yeah, to block up some space and just kind of give me bad lanes there. You think for a minute I think about putting that Crabbit in and doing some damage, but then you're like, I'm not going to proc Vengeance. That doesn't make any sense here.
Yeah, because again, still haven't killed any Sentinels.
Yes. Yeah, Sentinels are really cool with a caster who's got like this really nasty, if you kill one of us, your stationary feat. I think the synergies in that particular package I'd sort of underestimated.
So here I'm paying attention to Imperatus' threat with the Skin and Moans, but I kind of don't consider the fact that the Sentinels can just swing to the side here and also come after this Skin and Moans. So I leave him pretty vulnerable in that respect. I probably should have been a lot more careful with this placement, pulled him a lot further back, and just continued to run solos in to contest against Imperatus in that zone. Because I still have a Gremlin Swarm that can go in there the next turn, because this turn I'm contesting with the Gorehound that nearly killed Goreshade.
Yep.
But in future turns, I can just continue to run solos in there and be fine. But I decided to instead posture pretty heavily with this Skin and Moans, which may have been a mistake, judging by how much damage Sentinels can put out and how I've made it very difficult for them to get into the other Skin and Moans already, so why wouldn't they go after this one?
So I've got some decisions to make here. Obviously, Evan has removed from play 2 Dusters, killed without removing from play 1 Ghost Sniper, which gave me 1 soul. So Goreshade goes up to 8, upkeep Dauntless Resolve is down on 7, and I've got some decisions to make. I look here, Imperatus is a vector where you can walk over the wall, automatically hit the Crabbit, and then sidestep into melee with the Gorehound. So I'm thinking about my allocation math. If I roll an 8, I one-shot the Crabbit. If I don't roll an 8, I could use my second initial on it, sidestepping not very far, still get into the Gorehound. So now I need to know if Imperatus makes 2 attacks, how many attacks does it take me to kill the Gorehound? And I think the answer is 2, maybe it's 3. So I'm thinking about how many to allocate to him. I ultimately conclude I allocate 1 to him and put him on a total of 3. Fortunately, I get lucky and I kill the Crabbit in the first attack, rolling that needed 8. I put myself into the back arc of the Gorehound. Second initial hits the Gorehound and does a solid chunk of damage. I'm dice plus, I want to say 5 at this point. Or no, 4? Is he 13 or 12?
The Gorehound is 13.
So I'm dice plus 4. I actually miss it with a bot attack. Or sorry, no, do hit it with a bot attack. And then I kill it with another initial, and I think I over-allocated to him by 1. But that's okay. The not necessarily knowing if I'd get that 8 was sort of a big deal. So Ghost Sniper moves up into contesting range. I'm hoping to kill the Gremlin Swarm here. So I move into position there, and you debate popping Labyrinth.
Yes. So I measure, again, not thinking about the Skin and Moans to the top of the table being in threat of these Sentinels, but every Sentinel in the zone, regardless of whether or not Labyrinth is popped, can get to my Skin and Moans in front of the child, so I decide not to use it. Although, in hindsight, probably would have been better because it restricts the movement of a lot more than just those Sentinels, including your caster.
Yeah, after you decided not to do that, I took a shot at the Glimmer Imp, I hit him, and I dub 1's the damage roll. I do 2 points of damage to the Glimmer Imp. He's alive on 3 boxes.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you keeping score at home, that is dice even damage roll does 0 damage. Oh, sorry, 2 damage.
That would
2
be
damage.
impossible.
Does literally the minimum damage amount possible, less than a deadly shot would have.
That's funny, actually.
Yep.
I'm going to use the safe bullets this time.
The rubber bullets. So, Dester goes here. He charges the Cage Rager, gets an impact attack on the Skin and Moans. Auto hits, but it's diced down a bunch. Doesn't do any damage. We'll do the next Dester, who goes a little deeper against the Cage Rager, staying outside of its 1-inch melee, but in its 2-inch. And then the guy at the back of the sort of wall there is the Thane, so the other Desters on this side, he comes in and he charges the Skin and Moans. So we'll do the guy who charges the Skin and Moans first. He hits. Sorry, that's actually just damage. He goes straight to damage, and then he goes damage on his gun, which also auto hits because his target's stationary. Sorry, to clarify. The melee attack auto hit because the target's stationary. The gun auto hits because the melee attack hit. And then the 2 Dusters who charge the Cage Rager also dice down 5. They do a ton of damage to him. Just legitimately truck him. He was a little bit wounded from before, but not super wounded. And now he's, I think, fair to say, super wounded.
Yes.
Because that guy was outside of the melee range. He's got a little bit more room to repo a bit further back without taking a free strike. The Thane charges in and charge attack hits, blows the damage rolls, gets 1 shot and rolls a 10 on it, which is enough to kill the Cage Rager. So the thing kind of underperformed there, but
killed
just
into the box.
did it. Just did it. Keeps everyone in the Duster unit within his unyielding bubble. So my goal here is I'm trying to, again, clear and score. And obviously Gorehound is going to be able to have a minimal impact this turn because he's just going to have to play quite cautious and protect himself. So what I'm figuring out this turn is what I need to do to keep my army safe and self-sufficient, get as much attrition work as I can, and isolate and remove the things that are currently threatening Gorehound. So a bunch of Sentinels are going to charge this stationary Skin and Moans. The officer and his banner buddy run up. I keep a Soulless Escort behind the forest, so if, Evan wants to get cute and do some damage to them or throw them around or something like that, I've got the option to still revive them from that sort of anchor piece. On the second charge attack, the Skin and Moans goes down. He's no longer stationary because he's dead.
Ice Cube.
Yeah. Ice to meet you.
Oh.
Are you too young to know that movie?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I mean, you're young, right?
I mean, that's fair enough.
It's
It
the
is an old
90s.
movie.
When you say that, it sounds a lot like you're talking about Empire Strikes Back in the Civil War. But you can see this really old movie. The worst. So now the Sentinels are doing that charge that Evan was like, oh, right, they're just going to charge this Skin and Moans. And they do. And then a bunch of them charge through Gremlin Swarms and charge the other Skin and Moans. They've got some issues here because some of the things they're charging put them in annoyance range. So now they're looking for 7s instead of 6s, and that's much less likely. So the first guy charges, and he does...
The Soulless Escort.
The Soulless Escort missed its charge attack. It charged Gremlin Swarm and missed. Then the first Sentinel charged, and he hits, and he just blows up the world. He does a ton of damage to the Skin and Moans. And then the other 2...
One of them misses. One of them hits.
Yep.
Also
he
does a good
less
chunk of
impressively
damage.
for damage. And the last guy is 1-1-2 something.
Makes up for the 5-6-6.
Sure does. That's actually pretty close to average. They don't kill the Skin and Moans.
Leaves it on 2 boxes.
And then the other one also takes a bunch of charges and also gets pretty resoundingly messed up.
Yep. You leave the first Skin and Moans on 2 boxes, the second Skin and Moan on 4 boxes.
Not bad. Weird situation here. Obviously, I was hoping to kill a piece, but just doing a ton of damage to these Skin and Moans and then forcing them to be in awkward spots where they have to, heal themselves with their corpses so they're not gaining armor in the long run, I think is also an acceptable position to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Forcing you to have some awkward order of activations choices,
Also,
making abuse harder.
Yeah, basically impossible to use abuse at this point.
Yeah.
Because typically you want to abuse first, then heal any aspects it potentially takes out. But if I abuse first, I might just kill the 2 health Skin and Moan. In fact, it's very likely.
So now you have to heal him for 2, abuse him, hope you roll the right column. If you don't, activate him and heal him with corpses.
Yeah, no, not good. Not good. So, instead... Oh, well, it's still your turn.
Yeah, so now I'm Gorehound is no longer jammed up. He was on 7. He heals for 6. Or sorry, no, he had 8 focus. He allocated 1, so he's on 6. He heals for 5, camps 1, and just runs behind this forest. Fun fact for the viewers at home, you can heal damage and run. which a lot of people don't know. I actually had somebody at the War Machine Weekend Invitational this year being like, I didn't know you could do that. Just
So,
funny.
I've spent 40 minutes on my clock just moving and not attacking models, and now I'm going to spend the last 20 minutes on my clock making Berserk overtake attacks
And killing
with Rattlers.
everything.
So this is the turn where I actually get to show just how much work the Get Work Done Screw support list can do. So we move some Gremlin Swarms out the way, and we get to it. So this one's going to just go contest your flag.
We should point out that the Artificer on that flag, who said, I can't be charged this turn, he scored a point. I scored a point in my zone. You have now scored once
I believe
on
it's
your
2
flag and
to
once in your zone.
5?
Yeah, 2 to 5. I now have 1, 2, 3. Sorry, it must be 2 to 4, right?
2 to 4 then.
Yeah, because I've scored. Oh no, sorry, you did not contest my flag. It is. It's 2 to 5. So the score is 2 to 5, and you're about to have a comeback turn, I suspect.
Yes. So this is the attrition turn, where we try to swing attrition back far enough in our favor that we can get our feet back on the ground and start taking table space back from Tim. So how do we do that? Well, first we're going to try to clear out these Skin and Moans so that they can go do work. So first things first, we're going to abuse the Rattler.
Step 1, abuse your pets.
And also heal the Skin and Moans that we have for a bunch. So he's basically dumped 4 on just healing. 3? Dump 3 on
2 to heal, 2 to... Did you abuse him, or?
2 to abuse, heal 1 aspect on each Skin and Moans, because they're also just going to use a corpse to heal a bunch. I upkept Tantrum, use it to move the Rattler that's going to go in a better position. And then I just start swinging on some Sentinels with the Child. Because she's there, she might as well put her own work in.
Yeah, she's got an incredible personal melee presence.
Yeah. Not
2
seen...
pounds, 16 crit pitch claws.
Yes. 18 if you hit her.
18 if I have strategically avoided hitting her all game.
Yes. So, we're starting on the Rattler. It's abused. It's just going to try to lawnmower through some Dawn Guard.
Yeah, so I think it's 6 to hit auto kills, or 6 to hit not double ones to kill if they're base to base.
Yes, it's Rattlers that have abuse do work, and I mean with Sentinels that want to bunch up, be base to base in order to get higher armor, they just chew through them. Karianna here is going to do the same thing basically for this Rattler by enraging it. It's going to go through even more Sentinels because it has even more freedom of movement where it is. Just avoiding, taking free strikes or anything. It's just going to overtake Berserk, overtake Berserk, overtake Berserk. And the fact that they have 2 initials makes this chain just even better.
Yeah, basically, because they charge for free and get the extra threat range of abuse. Rattlers in this list have basically, what are they, speed 5? 6?
They speed 6 base.
So speed 6 goes to 8, goes to 11, goes to 12 because they're 1-inch melee.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a 12-inch threat on a Berserk overtake chain that only stops if they miss, fail to kill, or encounter a tough check 5 times. Which is crazy good.
And against lists with tough, I can accursed.
Yeah.
So there's some tools here. We clear out an entire unit of Sentinels and get the Skin and Moans onto the back unit to kill even more. Or sorry, no, I don't proc Vengeance on your second unit again. I just wipe 1 unit off the table. This Skin and Moans is going to try to be careful as to not die to Imperatus. And I can test with the Gremlin Swarm again. As I said, just keep on throwing those Gremlin Swarms at you to contest flags, and it's going to help to not lose on scenario. Because at this point, that's what we're worried about. As much as we are also low on clock, as you can kind of tell, I'm below 10 minutes at this point.
You're managing it well, though.
Crabbit just going to get in the way of these Sentinels that have not triggered Vengeance on, and make it so that, again, kind of like that tactic we did with the Gorehound earlier in the game, you can't charge as many Sentinels onto the damaged Skin and Moans. The top Skin and Moans tramples, eats a Ghost Sniper, heals himself with a corpse, and means I can score my top flag, which is good because, again, we need to catch up in scenario at this point.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that the Skin of Moans that killed so many Sentinels, I mean, they've healed for not an insignificant amount. Like they're back. They were both almost dead. Now they're both not.
Yeah, they're about 10, 12 boxes each.
Yeah, the Glimmer Imp is just outside of Imperatus' range to charge. So I'm in an awkward situation right now. Definitely, I would like to kill enough stuff to clear zones meaningfully, but that's going to be a bit tricky.
Mm-hmm.
So, you do not contest my... No, you do contest my flag with the Gremlin Swarm.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to find a way to kill it. I've got a couple of different options, and all of them have sort of failure points. The Desters here charge and make a couple of impact attack rolls, and they end up killing Lady Karianna Rose. It's worth pointing out, I don't know if you've caught it on the channel already, but the Lady Karianna Rose there is the Riding Hood Karianna Rose. Mm-hmm. Super cool mini crate exclusive sculpt. And a friend of the channel, Brad, painted that for us. And also painted actually the entire GRYMKIN army here. So if you're in Southern Ontario, we'll include a link in the comments below. He's got a sort of commission painting services rates are super reasonable, and he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're happy to plug his stuff. If you end up contacting Bold Design Painting, that's the one. Let him know that you sent us, and he'll give you a good deal.
Yeah.
Eiryss walks through the forest, and she takes a back arc shot at the contestant Gremlin Swarm. She gets within 5, and her gun is magical, so she does kill it off. Leaves me with Imperatus, 20-point character heavy warjack available only in a restricted theme. Just boosts to hit a gunshot to kill a Gremlin Swarm, and then hopefully kills it.
He's been doing, you know what, considering how much chaff he's killed this game.
He's on chaff duty.
It's what? Gremlin Swarm.
Yep. He's killed 2 Gorehounds now.
Gorehound.
Gremlin Swarm. Yeah, he's been chewing through the chaff. His job is just, this is my zone. You may not have it.
Fair enough. Imperatus.
Yep. Or Imperatus, I've heard a few times. Right? I'm not a fan. So the Sentinel unit here charges in. I get a couple on the Crabbit that you used to jam me up here. I get a couple on the Skin of Moans. I get a couple on the Rattler.
You just roll quad 6s.
No, that wasn't quite quad 6s. It was good, though. I do kill the Rattler and the Skin of Moans. And I think in a second here I'm going to kill the Crab.
Yep.
Sentinels. You just point them and they destroy. I think one of the things that everyone forgot when themes came out and people were like, oh, Legions of Dawn isn't a great theme and like all this stuff is awkward, is it just Sentinels are insane.
Yeah, Sentinels are a ridiculously good unit.
Yeah, people are like, oh, well, are they that good? I feel like maybe they're lower costed, and they just aren't, and they're just fantastic.
I feel like I've played around them like pretty well this game, considering like I've stayed out of threat ranges. I've only triggered Vengeance when I absolutely need to. At the end of this turn, I scored a 4, and you score to 8?
10.
8.
Sorry, 8. 8, you're right.
If it were 10, you would have won.
Correct.
So, at this point, I have very few models left. So, I'm going to do my best to clear out what I can. However, I don't actually think it's possible for me to contest all the things I need to, because I can't.
Yeah,
I guess the best I can do is the Rattler gets abused and runs into the bottom zone. And at that point, I contest there, and then the Skin and Moans goes into the top zone, and that maybe buys me a turn, but it's not going to take you 11 minutes to clear out a single Rattler. So instead, I'm going to just show you how much more work a Rattler can do. So I abuse this one. He's under Sorrowful Rampage as well, so he's Mat 7, POW 16 effectively, charges for free at a Dester and kills it.
This unit is currently... I did drop Dauntless Resolve when Goreshade ran and healed again. Mm-hmm. Goreshade's back up to 12 boxes, but he's still playing very conservatively.
Yeah. This is a mini-phoenix unit of Sentinels, by the way.
Yep.
And we're just
going to kill them all. They're Armor 20. You don't care.
Yep.
I think at one point here you have to buy an attack.
I think so, too. I boosted against the Dester to hit. Oh, I have to buy 2 because I missed twice. So at this point in the game, as you can probably tell, I can't contest enough zones to not auto lose this game on scenario.
I thought you might be trying for a line of play where that Rattler cleared the zone and then Child scored it, but
not so. I don't actually realize until I end up trying to kill Imperatus and having that not happen.
I mean, if you killed Imperatus here,
if I kill him, then I score your zone and the flag, and we're back in business.
If you had a Gremlin Swarm left here, you would be able to kill Imperatus. If they sabotage him, you can't heal.
Oh, you're right. No, that would have been good. Well, too bad all of those are dead. I leave Imperatus on 1, more likely 18 boxes.
Killed by Imperatus, the chaff clearer.
Correct. And at the end of my turn,
clear some chaff
Tim scores to 10, and I score to 5.
Yeah, and that's the game.
That is the game.
Yeah, I mean, we're mentioning at this point that Imperatus can actually finish Protocol in the maintenance phase, because Evan's like, leave him on 1 box. That's the right number to leave him on, right? And I'm like, no, because he'll just heal everything. And you're like, you can do that? No rep player I've played against has ever done that. And I'm like, that's what I say. Get better rep players.
All right.
I mean, yeah. So I think what this list is it's kind of a creative exercise a little bit. You know, certainly exploring things about the faction that are new and different. I think there's more tools available than there were before. I think Goreshade's super flexible. I'm really happy with how things are panning out.
Yeah. Ret is definitely something I actually have to worry about now. So that's something.
Sorry, folks.
Yeah,
and you know, GRYMKIN continues to be a strong force. I'm pleased.
Yeah, GRYMKIN, it's always fun to just dip back into them every now and then because the faction is so unique.
Yes, they are unlike anything else. And pretty soon, we'll get to play around with a Time Bird.
Yeah, Time Bird.
The Time Bird is a construct. It doesn't frenzy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time.
Yep. If you're watching this on Patreon, we really support it and are very grateful.
No, Tim, they support us.
Well, I mean, that's true, but we also support their choice.
Okay.
We're grateful for it.
Yes.
This is probably going to come out after it, but there's sort of a Patreon thank you thing going on that we really appreciate our supporters. Yeah. It allows us to do creative projects and basically have this be something that we can feel passionate and excited about instead of simply worried if we'll have the time and money and energy to keep doing it. So you allow us to be creative and passionate, and hopefully that makes everyone's life better. So thank you very much. Your $1 a week is more valuable than you can possibly know. And if you're watching this on YouTube and have not supported us on Patreon, you don't have to. If you can't afford it, no worries, no hard feelings. If you can, it helps a lot.
Thanks, guys, and we will see you next Monday.